I don't know how many of you are familiar with YES, but at YES, our mission is to provide English language services that help people who choose to make Montreal and Quebec their home to start or restart meaningful careers. Nous aidons autant les gens qui veulent commencer une carrière, comme les finissants de nos universités, que les personnes qui veulent partir ou faire grandir leur entreprise, les entrepreneurs en herbe. Personally, I profoundly believe that jobs provide a sense of purpose and give people a sense of belonging and make them part of a community. And that's why at YES, we help so many people. So tonight, we're going to learn not just from entrepreneurs, but from women entrepreneurs, and in STEM, no less, about what it takes to build a successful business.
It's a great story because if you look at the evolution of this organization, I mean, when the organization first started in 1995, I think the first team was 3 staff, and they served 500 people in the early years. And they had 2 programs, which was a job search, and I think CVs, translating CVs. And if you look at where the organization is now, and I love that backdrop, this happened because of a certain philosophy, certain ability to attract talent and to be relevant in Montreal. My philosophy is simple. Alone, we go faster. Together, we go further. So this is what we're trying to build. This is the communities, great cities, great societies. That's what they're built on, I think. And YES has always been entrepreneurial. That's what really propelled the organization. So like yourselves, it's that spirit of entrepreneurship, of never resting on our laurels, of continuing to push the envelope. That's what we're going to continue to do. And I'm very privileged to be working, with an experienced and very dedicated staff, great volunteers, and those are the foundations of a community organization that is relevant and that is meaningful to its community.
So the first lesson I want to start off with that I've learned from my challenges, for those of you who are interested in starting your own startup or business, is the importance of having a phenomenal team. That is one of the most important things that I'm learning on this journey. When I started The Mindful Scholar, I had a co-founder. We worked really well together. She was just as passionate about bringing mindfulness to children as I was. And then when she got pregnant with her first child, she made the decision to leave the company and just be a full-time mom. And that was a pretty big blow for me. And I felt initially like it was a big setback. And then at some point, within like a week or 2, I convinced myself, I'm like, okay, forget it. Like my ego started to roar a little. I'm like, okay, forget it. I don't need anybody. I can do this all on my own, right? And I did. I did a lot as a one person, one woman show. I did a lot, and I was really proud of what I accomplished in a short amount of time. Only a few months later, when I was really kind of in the thick of it, and I realized how crazy it is for one person to be wearing so many hats, to be fundraising, to be, developing an app, developing a platform, content development, marketing, sales. It's physically impossible, no matter how great you think you are, to do it on your own. So, biggest takeaway I want to leave you guys with is take the time, it takes time, but take the time to build a phenomenal team. It all comes down to your team. Find people that are great at what they do, and then let them do their thing. I think there's also an essence or a beauty in finding someone who's great and then stepping back and saying, okay, now you do you. Give them the space to do what they are best at doing. And also in terms of team, leverage technologies as much as you can. So, there are great tools out there like Trello and Teamwork. Whether you're a one-woman show or you have a team, use the technologies out there to really, help yourself stay organized, set your goals, help you, what's your 1-year goal? What's your 6-month goal? What do I need to achieve every day, every week to achieve that? So leverage the technology. There's also a lot of great websites that I used, like Fiverr and Upwork. When you're on a no budget, you have no budget, and you need to get work done, you can find amazing talent and freelancers out there that are good at what they do and at a really low cost, until you decide to raise funds. So that was the first lesson. The second lesson I wanted to, leave you guys with is to be very selective with your funding. So this is still something that I'm kind of still debating myself, or torn between whether I should continue bootstrapping the company or accept angel investments. I'm getting people interested who are interested and all approach me and want to invest in the company. And one thing I've learned from my mentors or the people that I talk to who've done this before is to only accept smart money. It's hard because when you're getting offers, it's very tempting when you're bootstrapping and you have no money to start with. So someone throws some money at you, and it's tempting to take it. But what I'm learning, and that I want to leave with you guys as well, is that your investors should be bringing much more to the table than just their money. Before you accept anything, ask yourself, what doors can this investor open for you? What expertise are they bringing to the table? What connections can you leverage from their network? And is this person even aligned with your own company values? And if none of that is there, just leave the money on the table. There's a lot of amazing resources, especially for women. There's FemSR, there's the BDC Women in Technology Fund, and in this day and age, our government's supporting so much. There's a lot of great programs. Leverage that as much as you can. The last takeaway in terms of challenges I want to talk about, and we touched upon it earlier as well, is the founder company fit. I really, as you mentioned yourself earlier, I really believe that you need to be passionate about whatever it is you're about to start. So if you're looking to start a new business, you better be uber passionate about it, because entrepreneurship, there's a lot of highs and there's even more lows. And it's that passion that you have that's going to push you through those tough times, and want you to keep it. That's what's going to push you to keep trucking through and keep pushing that envelope. So if you are going to start something, do something that you're passionate about, something that you would work on even for free, because you're going to need that at times. I'm just being real. Yeah, the third thing I want to say is remain fluid. I think a lot of us tend to get stuck in our own ideas, and we waste a lot of time trying to make things work our way. Like, it's got to be my way. I want to do it this way, or this is what I had in my head, and you don't want to really move. Just be ready to pivot when you need to, because you're going to pivot a lot when you're running a startup. And I think I've learned now that the only thing you should really hold sentimental value to, and it's hard because you're big. I feel like my company's my third kid. Like Mindful Aussies, our little company mascot, and that's like my baby. Like, you do anything to him, I'll kill you, But I've had to step away and realize that the only thing you can really put sentimental value to is why you started the business. Keep the why close to your heart, and everything else should be flexible. We're all learning, so approach us, whoever's on the panel, the women, and there's so much you can learn from these wonderful women, and there's so much we can learn from you guys as well. We're in this together. It's basically a tribe, and we can't do this without one another. So keep that mindset that you're not alone. We're in it together, and put all that self-doubt aside and just go do it.
I haven't had an opportunity to see you all from this standing point. You all look fabulous this evening. On behalf of SAP, we are thrilled to have all of you here with us today. I know that together with my esteemed panelists, we are looking forward to a very important conversation this evening. What we know for sure is that when you bring 85 people together who are passionate about women in entrepreneurship, we will need hours this evening. So she pursued a degree in industrial engineering. Along the way, she became a feminist, a STEMinist, actually, self-proclaimed. She launched her career at Bombardier. This go-getter, as you will come to know her in a few moments, this travel enthusiast. She turned her passion into her startup, which was Alicia. She was ahead of her time when she built an AI platform that would disrupt the travel industry. Now, here's the thing. She was recognized as one of the top 25 entrepreneurs in Quebec by the Bronfman Foundation. Here on this very stage, YES and SAP awarded her a bursary for being one of the best rockstar female startups in Montreal. She is now the managing director of SADAX. Is that how you pronounce it? Okay. Again, pioneering in cloud and AI. In her spare time, and I know you're wondering, how does she have spare time? She funnels her passion to help young women be inspired to pursue careers in STEM. Most recently, she oversaw a 54-hour boot camp. I can't even manage 54 hours. 12 hours is a big day. 54 hours to help young women start their startups. Please join me in telling Vanessa that she is an inspiration to young entrepreneurs. Vanessa, please join me. All right, here we go. Microsoft, Toon Boom, Softimage, and who remembers Digital Equipment Company? These companies had the pleasure of having our next panelist, Elizabeth, be one of their leaders at the table. She knows a thing or two about exits. She was one of the VPs, global VPs of business development for YES Systems. She helped them exit to a company that you might have heard of called Autodesk for a number of around 83 million at that time? Yes, okay. She went on to start her own company. She's one of the founders of Zathan Group, so she invests in early stage startups. She's a YES board member. She's also one of the 3 national representatives for the YES organization with the status of women to help advance systemic change for women in STEM. What else can I say about her? Oh, she's also got this side gig called a full-time job. She's also the Vice President of Business Development for Exigens, and this is a company that is pioneering in AI to disrupt the financial industry. Is she a rock star? I think she's a rock star. Okay, last but not least, I want to bring to the stage Josette Renée Landry. Okay, let's start with your academic background. It's an impressive alphabet soup. Let me make sure I get this right. She's got a, hold on now, a PhD from UBC. She's got a postdoctoral from the University of Cambridge. She has an MBA from HEC. She was the VP of BD at Mitex. She oversaw over 60 universities, important researchers, and industry experts. What else can I tell you about her? Wow, hold on now. Our own Canada Health Minister chose her as one of 6 researchers as part of a research council to help us move forward on some very important topics. And let's talk about entrepreneurship. She was chosen as Techstars 2018 cohort for New York City. Why? Because she started a business. She's the CEO and founder of a company called Streamline. Now, we want her to succeed. Please put your hands together for your work. And so I want to just kick us off with this first question. I want to hear from you what you think is the one question that you're just so tired of hearing, that you just want to get out of the way right now on the topic of women and entrepreneurship.
On my side, one question that I'm tired of hearing about is, and some might find this a bit strange, it's really about when women get asked too much about the work-life balance. So that's one thing that's reoccurring for me. That's an issue because, of course, women get overwhelmingly asked this question versus men. And I can understand why, because we still have a big part of the stick, right, back at home to be able to handle housework and the kids, etc. But at the same time, it's the responsibility. Women entrepreneurs, especially, we're running businesses. So of course, business stays a priority. What I like to hear about more is, contrary to work-life balance, is maybe keeping in harmony between your challenges presently, where you're at in your life, where you want to be as well. And I want to hear more about speaking about self-care for entrepreneurs. So that's one thing, and it's a big issue for entrepreneurs, especially as it's overwhelmingly challenging to be an entrepreneur. There's a lot of ups, a lot of downs, as you mentioned before, and a lot of depression as well that we don't speak about at all for entrepreneurs, for business owners, because at the end of the day, you're alone making these decisions of maybe closing down your business because things are not going well, or firing somebody. That can be hard as well on yourself mentally. So there's not a lot of discussion on really self-care for entrepreneurs, how you can build a support system to grow through these challenges, because as much as, yes, we're in those boardrooms making decisions and it's very challenging and rewarding, at the end of the day, you're still human. So you still need to take care of yourself because it's a long game being an entrepreneur. So I have a mentor of mine who always says that to build a successful business, business, it takes about 7 years. So you need to be at your best self during those 7 years. So what are you doing on a daily basis, on a monthly basis, to be able to take care of you and be sure that you're always at your best self? Like athletes, all athletes have a mental preparator. I don't know if you knew that, but all athletes going to the Olympic have a mental preparator. So I think it's important for us as well as entrepreneurs to understand that and really learn how to take better care of ourselves, because it's a long game.
So when I was contemplating becoming an entrepreneur, at a time where I was easily seduced because there were so many companies around me that were exiting to Facebook and SAP and Google, an investor gave me the best piece of advice. And he said, Cindy, imagine the worst day possible, because those days will come, and decide if you still want to be in it. Because as you said very well, Vanessa, it's a long game. So I'd like to just talk a little bit about challenges and talk about the hardest day, if you would. Maybe if you could share, what are some of the obstacles that you've faced that you dare share here, so that some of the people in the audience can get ahead of those challenges with your advice?
Well, obviously, okay, so if I was going to cover the challenges of raising money, hiring your first people, etc. I think everybody shares those challenges, and you're not gonna learn anything new by me sharing that. For me, the most challenging aspect in my entrepreneurial journey. So we spoke about Alicia, which was my first startup I launched a few years ago, and the most challenging thing for me was to take the decision to close down Alicia. So here was something that I had put like 3 years of hard work, cries, tears. I was also at the Founder Institute with Sergio. So it was a lot of work, effort done. At one point, we were like 15 people working on the project. So of course, at the end, to let everybody go. And I'm still happy of that decision to close down Alicia. And I think one point that has been mentioned at several moments this evening is the question of passion. So when I started at Alicia, it was really because I wanted to solve a problem. So I still remember part of my pitch. Typically, when you're trying to plan out a travel, it takes you like 20, 30 hours as an individual to be able to plan out your trip and your ideal trip with the activities, etc. But we're extremely busy people, especially professionals, right? So who has that type of time, especially if you want to enjoy a great experience? So the objective was to have that sort of AI be able to scour the web, find the reviews that are similar, with similar interests, and really build you that sort of perfect itinerary. So that was really my head, because I'm an industrial engineering. My head trying to figure out how to solve this problem, but I didn't come from a travel space. You know, I'm not a particular travel bug. If I don't travel every 3 months, I won't go crazy. You know, I can stay actually every few years and travel, it's okay. So that was one thing that was missing. And at the end of the day, when I took that decision, it was because I didn't have that passion to last those 7 years to be able to figure out at one point which would work, because I could have stick to it, right? It would have been successful at one point, but why was I doing it? So the why was missing, and that was actually one of the biggest things to realize that, okay, I was actually doing something and putting all of my heart in it, because I'm a passionate person. I always do things like 100%, but I wasn't really interested in the project. Like at the end of the day, it wasn't something that was fully me. So to let that go and to also accept that, okay, this was a failure. This was for me my first real public failure after all those grants, etc. So it was a hard time accepting that, okay, this wasn't the startup, this wasn't the problem for me, and actually joining another startup afterwards where it was a great experience as well. So letting go of maybe those stories or things that you have in your head, and understanding, you know, what your strengths are, what you're good at, and where you should really put your passion and effort in. So that was my biggest lesson.
We're going to come back to the concept of failure and success in a little bit, but thank you for sharing that.
We talked about diversity, but I do think often a man's brain and a woman's brain approach things differently. I see it often, you know, even with my husband, how we look at things differently, how potentially he can step over the laundry basket versus carrying it down the stairs.
Okay, we have to stay on topic.
That is the topic, because I think as women, and that has been the hardest part for me, is I gotta let the details go. we try and do so much, and I'll refer to one of my favorite commercials where, you know, there's a husband and wife, they're getting ready for bed, they're watching the end of the news, and he says, oh, I'm going upstairs, and he says, are you coming? She says, I'll be there in 2 seconds, and she walks into the kitchen, she sees the load of laundry in the dryer, she takes it out, she folds it, she opens the fridge, she sees the kids' lunches aren't made, and she makes the kids' lunches, right? And then, you know, as she's going up the stairs, then she sees some other laundry elements, and she carries it back. Half an hour later, she gets upstairs, and her husband says, what took so long, right? And I think that is, and I know to your point that getting the question on multitasking, but we just kind of sometimes have a bit of a different philosophy. I think it's a genetic makeup. It's nothing wrong on either side, but it's a different way that I think that our challenge is let it go, focus on what you're doing. And another great YouTube video, the difference between the way a man and a woman's brain thinks, which is, you know, that level of focus. It's really hard for us to focus sometimes. We like to be doing 5 things at the same time. And that, I'd say, is a recipe for failure. So,
Thank you.
So I can't think of one major challenge yet in the company, probably because the company is so young. But I think the hardest challenge is just the ups and downs of everyday life of having a business, and it's having to just ignore those lows and continue, you know, smiling and saying everything is awesome and just pushing forward. And I would say that's the hardest challenge with having a startup.
That's fair. Just by a show of hands, how many of you would share that you're under 40 in the audience? Or that you're 50 and you want to be 40? Okay, so, okay. Thank you for that. So I have a question for you, Vanessa, only for you. We know that, call it a war for talent, a brain drain, there's a skills gap. We know that in STEM today, I'm looking at you and I think you have a lineup of choices in front of you, a plethora of things that you could pick from. Why entrepreneurship? What advice do you want to give to the young talent in the room that are thinking about or have started in their journey as entrepreneurs?
One entrepreneurship, I think I came to the realization recently that I do not make a good employee. I always want more, I give more, I don't know when to stop. But more seriously, I've always, so I think maybe kind of a backstory, I'm not from Montreal, I actually grew up in Haiti. And came here to study industrial engineering, and then afterwards like continued my career and like started getting involved, etc. So I always had that idea in the back of my mind of, like, even from Haiti, of eventually like having a business, building a business. So I met up with a counselor at a company at one point, and so I had, that's a great company, Really, it's still a great company. Okay. But I kind of had like my career path lined up in the company, saying, okay, well, here's where I see that I want to go eventually, and here are the things that I'm already delivering. So how can you help me? How can I get mentorship, etc. And the person was like, you know, wow, Vanessa, this is all very impressive, but like, are you sure you're not being too aggressive? So at that point, I definitely decided that this was not the place for me. And if actually being, you know, a go-getter and ambitious was being too aggressive, clearly I needed to forge my own path. So I left from where at that point. I left the X company at that point and started on my own journey. So I think definitely there's that sort of like drive of wanting to do more, wanting to create something. I want to build things and be able to lead my own vision and put my own values into it. So that's one thing that makes me an entrepreneur, and not have to go back maybe to the workplace, even though I have had a good experience. And that's maybe my recommendation to entrepreneurs tonight. Yes, there's a lot of myths, I think, around entrepreneurship, saying like, you know, entrepreneurs are typically very young, but the average age actually for startup founders is 42 years old. I don't know if you guys knew that. So that means that people actually launch successful businesses later in their careers, and that's very okay. What I would recommend is, if you do have an idea and you're not sure, you don't actually have an idea, you're not sure, you know you want to have a business, you're not sure what direction to take with it, etc., join a young startup company. There's an enormous amount of talent that is being needed to be able to build those companies. And I don't think it was shared, but after actually closing down Elysia, I joined a young startup here in Montreal called Office Vibe, which was part of GSoft, and that was like one of the most incredible experiences. And it gave me an incredible amount of experience. It grew also my network to be able afterwards to move on and now be doing what I'm doing. So you get a lot of experience, you get a lot of networking, and maybe eventually also you can become a founder of that said company. So if you don't have an idea and you know you have that drive and passion, join a startup. There are like multiple startups here.
Do women hold themselves back at the table? Are we our own glass ceiling?
It's a tough question, because when you asked me earlier whether or not there was anything that I felt I couldn't do, I cheekily answered, no, I've always thought I could do everything. And of course it's a lie. Nobody feels like they can do everything. But I force myself to think that I can do anything. And when there's something that I stop and think like, oh, I couldn't do that, and I try to think, okay, is it because I'm a woman that I think that, or is it for another reason? And I'll force myself to do some really silly things. A few years ago, I think it was about 2 years ago, there was a contest, not a contest, but an application process because Canada was looking for the next astronauts. I have motion sickness. I applied.
Nice.
It was one of those things where I thought, well, I have a PhD in something. I have other qualifications. Maybe I'll make it through the first few cuts. And then, there might be some tricks to deal with motion sickness. So I think it's just, you just have to go for it. Stop thinking about whether or not you, regardless of if you're a man or a woman, but whether or not you think you can do it, and just try. Worst case, you'll fail.
Thank you very much for all of your wonderful speeches and advice you've given. But I just wonder, one of the things that really resonated was, being an entrepreneur, you're very much in your own head. You have your ideas, you know what you want to do. Do you have any tips for trying to get out of your own head and trying to get that idea across to people? I know it's a big question, but...
For sure, just do it. I think we try to always have the perfect methodology, but entrepreneurship is not about that. It's about selling. So first thing you need to do is make sure that you're actually selling to a customer, you're doing things, you're going out there and speaking. And secondly, if you do have jitters, if you do want to be able to bounce ideas, find yourself a mentor. I think that's one of the great things really from entrepreneurship, or even being a professional that I've had the opportunity to have, is different mentors. And it's not people that I came up to and just said, can you be my mentor? It's really people that I've asked questions or tips at whenever I face difficulties, and over the years they've become those sort of confidence and mentors. So I think that's really one thing. I'm not sure, I don't know if YES has a mentorship program, probably, yes. So YES has a great mentorship program, La Jeune Chambre de Commerce de Montréal, the Young Board of Trade as well, and they will connect you with the people you need. So definitely that would be my advice.
And I'll just add that a lot of the accelerators actually look for people, not necessarily for their ideas. So Founder Institute is a good example of that. Even if you haven't yet really refined what you want to do, they'll pick you for you. And then you can work through the idea and the process during the program.
So thank you for sharing your contributions and your perspectives. I'm asking with regards to women in tech. I've got a postdoc in an interdisciplinary field, but I'm an introvert and I'm sort of like a backroom person, and I think I'm not the only nerdy person in the room who has a hard time with networking and with being outgoing and sociable. So to me, it's not the lack of ideas that is the issue, or the skills or the competence. It's the people skills and the sociable aspect of starting a business. And I don't know if you can speak to that a little bit.
Thank you for that question. It also came up for some other people that registered around non-technical skills.
So maybe I can just start by answering that. If you look in Silicon Valley and look at the people who are starting companies, they do not have social skills. So it's not a prerequisite to start a very successful company. I know you're right now seeing, I guess, the public face of having a company. But a lot of the very successful companies are not often pitching in public, are not often doing that very public persona. So you can be very successful in a very technical field without having to necessarily mingle and network. Having said that, networking adds so much value, because then you come to grow your network and to understand other people that have gone through the same challenges as you have. But I would say being an outspoken person, being someone with liking like an extrovert is not necessary to have a good company. A lot of people in Techstars, which is one of the good programs I went through, are not necessarily the most extroverted folks, but they're very good at what they do.
One more question?
I'm just going to answer that and say, one of the last companies that we invested in were co-founders, right? And that is the beauty of co-founders, is you find the yin and yang of what it's going to take to lead a business. And one of the other co-founders is one of the most brilliant people, but I think I've heard 15 words, right? And so, their ability to articulate in a very, very different way and a very impactful way. And that's, in most Y Combinator across the board, everybody says, you need to find a good co-founder, find complementary skills that make it a good partnership.
Excellent. Question at the back.
Thank you very much for this evening's panel and discussion, but my question would be, for a woman entrepreneur, I think I'm addressing to women because we play a different role in society, don't we? Despite all of the elements and the secrets for success that you have discussed, what is the only one thing, the only one character or element that we should have to become successful as a woman entrepreneur?
I love that you asked that question, because I was going to wrap up the night with that question. And that's where we are, I think, so that we have time to do what we just heard is super important, and that is networking. And so let's close it with that. What's your one piece of advice that you can offer to the audience this evening?
So I think my piece of advice is not for women entrepreneur or men entrepreneur. It's for anyone who wants to be an entrepreneur or be successful, is to have initiative. It doesn't matter what you try, but try something new. It's something that will show that you're willing to open your horizon. So initiative at anything, I think, is very critical.
I think maybe because I'm old school, right? I got a lot of playtime in the field, I guess you call it. I look and I go back, and so often I was kind of the only girl in the room, and I got used to understanding the dynamics of what that meant. And I was even just reading an article, kind of preparing for this, where, the perspective of how a woman expresses herself often very differently than a man. And I think, even to that point around why women get funded less than men is trying to find the commonality of that language. And, where, a man is ambitious, a woman is aggressive, right? And those are kind of learned elements in our society about what we're trying to often get boxed into. And so I think as a woman entrepreneur, you need to understand the language. You need to be sensitive to it. You need to try and play in that. And you need to basically, I'm going to say, not make it about man or woman, but make it about you in particular. And which is why sometimes I don't like the women-only VC-funded things, or all of those things that call out to say, I am woman, as opposed to, I just like to hear me roar, that's it. So I like the second part of that line.
So kind of general advice for entrepreneurs, just continue to learn. You have to learn, like every day you're learning new things about your business, you're learning new things about yourself. So always be open to learning and adapting. I think for women in particular, maybe going to those subconscious bias, we have to stop trying to be perfect all the time. So I think that's the one recommendation I would have for women entrepreneurs, especially just always trying to do things the right way, etc. There's no right way. There's only a way that'll help you move forward one step at a time.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, I know that this evening I personally have been inspired by all of you and these lovely faces in the audience. I'm looking forward to meeting many of you at the cocktail. I want to thank our panelists and YES for making this possible. You're absolutely brilliant. Thank you for being so real and sharing and making this such a fun part of my absolute day. And with that, I think we're going to declare our cocktail open. Thank you.